RWM Home Loans in Fresno is a proud sponsor of Fuego FC. RWM Fresno, mortgages made easy and where your journey begins. Little Caesars has been a proud partner of Fuego FC for over a decade. Check out their new location on Cedar and Shields in Fresno and make sure to order some crazy bread. The Iron Office, a 24/7 private gym, veteran-owned, right here in Fresno, California. Make sure to lift heavy, lift often with the Fuego's official gym partner, the Iron Office. Envision Realty. We want to help those achieve the dream of home ownership. We are your voice and will be right by your side from beginning to end and beyond. Visit www.envisionfresno.com and be a future home owner. Well, we're on. We're live. Sam Hansen introducing hip hop's Frodo Baggins. No, I'm just kidding. But man, it's good to have you on. And we've known each other. It's like going on over 10 years now.
Oh yeah, definitely 10 years. Probably like
2011, something like that.
Yeah. But I feel like did you ever come to like street rock events or any FTK?
I did,
like,
yeah.
Mics or anything like that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, my buddy. Shout out to my homie Sasquatch.
Yes, that's right.
Sasquatch. Julian used to work for you.
He worked at the shop.
Yeah, and he had some great stories. So whenever I had heard about you before from those and like kind of seen you around or whatever, I didn't know much about you. And then when we started working at the Grizzlies together, I went into the back and like I see you in your cave and you have like all this cool shit around, and I'm like, oh, this guy's like super ultra creative. I didn't realize what you had done with FTK and like what your role was. I just knew you owned the place and like
I was a co-owner.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I guess I was probably the more creative and out of the owners. A lot of your friends used to frequent the shop quite a bit. Would come through to events, and then I remember for the longest time, I didn't know your name. I literally like referred to you as Good Hair Wilson. Because you used to have like this, really good like.
It was a little longer.
Yeah, it was a little longer. It was more kind of like poofier. It was more.
Yep.
I don't have a Lord of the Rings character to reference it to, but it was saucing. And so then one time someone goes, "Hey, have you seen Chris?" And I was like, "Chris? No, yeah, you were just talking to him." I was like, "Wilson?" I had no idea your name was Chris, but I hella knew you.
Right.
But I like always referred to you as like Wilson.
Well, growing up, it was always like, we grew up in that time frame where it was like everybody's Mike, John, and Chris, right? And so there's 10 Chris's around everywhere. And even at the Grizz, it was like the owner, Curry. I mean, there was like a bunch of Chris's all at once.
So it was just always Wilson.
It's just last names.
And then when you were working at the Grizz, were you an intern?
Yeah, I started as an intern. Intern in community relations, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we were sort of like, well, at least you were on the side of the inside resistance where we wanted to do a lot more creative, I guess we'd say like Fresno-centric things at the Grizz. And the majority of the people there were either they were from out of town and they wanted to do things that they had saw in other markets, or they were from Clovis and just wanted to do things that they had saw in other markets.
Yeah, or cater to that like San Francisco Giants crowd.
Yeah, they definitely like hung their hat on that. Yep. And I'm guilty of that also. I was part.
It works occasionally
of that, but I did always try to spin a Fresno connection,
right,
farm grown thing, trying to tie it back to ag or. Fresno Giants and the leg, Yeah,
it's like, I mean, as we've gone through this whole process of dealing with the city and like all the crazy stuff that's gone on the last year and dealing with that, like there's this sentiment in Fresno for whatever reason that like there's some great white hope coming out of San Francisco or LA that's all of a sudden going to like give them the remedy to make your city a cool place. And it's like the thing that I think we've always agreed with is like, let's build that shit from within.
Yes.
Like we have our own identity. We have our own brand. It's already here. Yep. We just need a place for it to show.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, me having family from here and then growing up in the Bay Area, coming here during the summers, I feel like I was a boomerang person my whole life. Mm-hmm. So I was able to appreciate what Fresno had that maybe people here just sort of took for granted.
Yeah, and, it's like you're just, you don't know you're swimming in the, like a fish doesn't realize the water around them, you know? It's like,
and so I was I was in Vallejo coming down here, seeing Fresno and seeing taco trucks. And so then when I started working at the Grizz, I remember pitching to the coalition of the willing, if you will, like, that, hey, like we should get all these trucks. So I knew that was some Fresno shit, or I knew that was a Central California thing, where because in the Bay Area it hadn't really popped off yet. It was starting to do sort of like those hipster food trucks, but they weren't
like
really,
pastrami sandwiches and shit like that, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't taco trucks. And I was like, you can make the case that taco trucks were invented here in Central California, and that's something that we should be proud of.
For sure.
And that there was a lot of people that were already proud of it. I remember being at Fresno State and being in class and seeing this kid from Kingsburg and a kid from Madera, two white kids, like arguing over which town had better taco trucks. And I was like, that's definitely some Central Cali shit.
So it was like a cultural piece that people didn't even realize was a cultural piece because they think every city's probably got it.
Maybe. Yeah. I guess they, I never asked. We came here and you were there 2011 when we, I think at first it was just 8 trucks and we went out of our way to, Mike Oz and I went around and found a truck that represented each city. So we had Los Torritos from Selma and trucks from Sanger, and so we wanted it to.
Was El Premio in the first one?
El Premio wasn't in the first one.
Okay.
I think the only truck that's been in all of them is El Mexicano.
Really?
Shouts out to Jovita.
Okay, right on.
Representing, right there. She's on Fowler.
Okay.
But the cultural connection to taco trucks was something that I think you were there for when we first brought that to the Grizz, and then that just started that kind of, I guess, unapologetically Fresno attitude that we.
It was challenging too, because I remember in the first couple of years it was like the Grizzlies, the base of their business is formed on the season ticket holders, and like in any sports culture, like your season ticket holders are extremely important. They're your guaranteed like revenue every year, and often the people who will tell you when you're doing good and definitely tell you when you're doing bad.
Yep. Yeah.
And I remember having season ticket holders come up to me like, I don't want to come on these days because it's just crazy and no one's watching the baseball game, and like they're just but I think by 2013 or 14, like there was 15,000 people in there, like bursting at the seams. No more room for trucks. Like we were putting trucks in parking lots. We took over the street, and all of a sudden it just like it blew up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was. I think that was something that sort of brought maybe younger people into the Grizzlies fan base also. Yeah. Especially like the Fresno Tacos merch when we did the
Alter Ego.
Alter Ego. Because then that started getting attention nationally, and Fresno, like they don't think something is cool until
it's on ESPN or something.
ESPN, and then that's when more of the season ticket holders kind of came around, and
and they just kind of accepted it and as part of like the cool thing to do. But for me, who's been involved on like the soccer side and the Hispanic concert side, I truly contribute the success of a lot of the Hispanic concerts and Hispanic soccer games. I think a lot of that was started by Taco Truck Throwdown and kind of introducing like a new mixed demographic into the stadium that was traditionally seen as a more like baseball traditionalist type of venue.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for that crowd, but I know that it felt to me when I first got there that demographic did not feel comfortable. They didn't feel welcome.
I felt the same way
in Chick Chansey Park. And I remember being in some of these meetings, and again, like it was odd that I was the one that they asked to do this, but when there was plenty of Hispanic people in the front office that were from Fresno. But I remember being asked, hey, how would you engage how would you push forward our Latino outreach? And I remember saying, well, one, I would kind of forget about the word Latino. I'm not exactly going to market to Cubans and Puerto Ricans here in Fresno.
Yep.
I would, unapologetically focus on people from Mexico and really get to understand their culture and know that people from Michoacan are super proud of their carnitas.
Hell yeah.
Right. And then also I said just the word outreach. It just sounds like you're reaching out to take their money and you're not involving them in the process. And so, like, ask them, ask the people who are there. Like, I guess sort of use a anthrovision to people try to look at things from a bird's eye view, and like instead you should be looking at it from a worm's eye view and actually get in the dirt and get it out the mud, like kind of understand the culture that you're engaging, and typically that culture freaking real will recognize real.
It's super relative to us because I think this club was formed as a Hispanic-based organization.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the first 6 years in Chukchansi Park, the tickets were in Spanish, the PA announcers were in Spanish, everything was in complete Spanish. And obviously soccer started to take, I remember you, and I was from the same cloth, was like, I didn't grow up being a huge soccer guy. I played it as a young kid. And then I got into that like typical American baseball, football guy, like screw soccer, blah, blah, blah. And then
it's a communist sport.
It's and I just always remember you saying, "Oh, this is a commie sport." I was just like,
obviously, I was being a little sarcastic.
Of course,
I was doing like a character, but whatever,
But around that time, like 2013, 14, there started to be this like crazy shift in mainstream American culture. And I think I've talked about it before, but I think NBC getting the English Premier League was a big deal. And so it was like widespread, easier to see on TV, and then just the internet and social media being able to like really take a lot of these superstar athletes and bring them into like American culture. But we began to see at the Fuego level, like, oh, this is shifting. Like it's not just the Hispanic audience anymore. It's like,
dude, actually, I've been meaning to ask you this. I kind of felt like a poser, but I got so caught up in the hype because my cousin, Amber Oliveira, she worked with Tim Howard.
Okay.
And during the whole run, and what year was that?
I think it would have been 2014, right? The World Cup run?
Yeah.
I think it was 14. Might be 14, I think,
I mean, again, like, I'm not gonna lie, I did like hella feel like a poser, like, being on some like, I believe that we, but I got so like caught up in the hype. I literally posted the quote of like Patton saying like, we're gonna grease our tanks with those krauts, and I was fully like caught up in the hype of just, I guess, American pride.
Yeah.
And did that?
I think that made a big difference. Yeah, I think. There had been successful American teams in the past, but for whatever reason, that one really kind of seemed like it captured the hearts of America, because there's a little controversy, like Landon Donovan wasn't included in the team, and he was the American superstar, and like they went with this different route with a lot of kind of European influenced players, and there's been this like American centric, like USA Soccer needs to be like an MLS all-star team, and we brought in a new coach, was like, no, we need to take the best Americans from around the world and make this our team. And they were good, and they had a few really, really good moments in that World Cup, and I think that was kind of the beginning of the shift of like, all right, this sport is kind of taking over in a way in this country that it hasn't before. And I think there's a ton of things happening. As you and I know intimately, baseball has not kept up with the times as much as we probably know it should have. So it's like getting this older kind of dying church crowd that's fading away with baseball, kind of like horse racing or like golf or even boxing did for a while. And then football, all the concussion shit started coming out.
Kids.
And so all these kids now who are traditionally playing football, their parents are putting them in soccer, and they're staying in soccer for longer.
Yeah.
So we're like, when I was coming up, I played soccer from like 4 till 12, and then I played baseball, football.
Yeah.
Where now kids are like getting in at 4 and playing all the way through high school at like a high level.
Yeah.
So, and then there's people, you know, my dad was like, knew how to ride dirt bikes, didn't know how to throw a curveball, but was my coach. You know what I mean? And then, you know, my experience in baseball, like one day I'll get to teach my kids at a higher level.
Yes.
And I think on the same side with soccer, it's like now you have people that have come up their whole life playing the game, really understanding the game, watching it at a national level, and now they're teaching it to their kids, they're coaching their kids. It's not some like guy who's never played soccer before that's coaching the local team. So it's like it's a generational shift, but I think 2014 was a huge point in that taking off.
With the American Outlaws.
And the American Outlaws,
I started seeing a lot more I guess like supporter type groups, like
definitely
and things like
that. And I mean a lot of that came from like these guys who would pop up at 4 a.m. and go to some bar like Peeves and watch Arsenal play. And those groups eventually started realizing like, hey, we all support US, so let's all get together and make one larger group. And then they, you know, it's just it's grown and grown and grown.
I started noticing that was when I think I started talking to you, and I was like, wow, like I sort of just came kind of obsessed with the cultural anthropology of soccer supporter groups. And it was actually when we had that, what was it, the Quakes versus
Quakes Galaxy that year. Yeah.
I remember me kind of like after the game being like, that was insane.
14,000 people sold out. Yeah.
I mean, and they were like those San Jose dudes were like, I mean, they were like banging that shit like it was a gang.
It is, yeah. The ultras, ultras are basically a gang.
Yeah, they were like set tripping on the other dudes, and I was like, oh, what? Like this is like that type of intensity. It reminded me of like Fresno State fans at its like most aggressive.
Yeah,
you know, like,
for sure.
You know, it was pretty intense, and that made me sort of more interested in just the. Of course, I tried to apply that to baseball with the whole like California Bear Flag Rebellion. I mean, we were, you know, obviously the Bear Flags were straight up, you know, page from soccer. But I never really stepped into the soccer realm because, like I said, it's, you know, I'm just not really trying to be a poser. I wanted to, or if I am going to step into something, I want to like, I want to have someone that actually really knows what they're doing and collab with them.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I think you fall into, just like me, a similar category of people who weren't traditionally always grown up with soccer, but now it's caught our eye and it's kind of shifted us. And for me, it happened by working with the Fuego, you know, through those years, those early years, 10 years ago, and really making me just fall in love with the sport. And the more you get to, you know, like with any sport, the more you get to learn about actual, not just the rules of the game, but the strategy and how these coaches are playing and where the players are positioning themselves and like the runs. And you kind of see, like, you can almost see a goal happen before it happens.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like a basketball fast break where you're like, all right, you see 3-on-2 and you know, so you start realizing all these different strategies that are going into the match. And then you really start falling in love with it. Cause then you're just like, oh, you missed that run. Like you see something that the player didn't see or whatnot. And then the culture, like there's no other sport right now aside from like the crazy days at Fresno State or maybe the Black Hole, like with the Oakland Raiders or something like that gives you that, like that, I mean, gangified type of energy, or it's
just that like insane passion, like
insane
that, like
passion.
I will die for this, like, you know, type of intensity. And I've always felt that about Fresno, just like I said, growing up in the Bay Area where it was a little more zen. And I remember I would come to Fresno and just everything was just like intense. Like people were like, and maybe some of that is like from like a, you know, just like a latent aggression or something. I don't know.
What do you think why do you think that is here? Why do you feel like that's just embedded in our DNA a bit?
The grit.
Yeah.
I think that there's just that grit because there's no one that's really going to help you here. I'd mentioned this before when I was talking about Dorian.
Shout out Dorian Castro.
Shout out to Dorian Castro and his brand Sincere. I had grown up in Vallejo, California, so I was familiar with the hood. And then my grandparents lived on a ranch out west of Kalinga, so I was familiar with the country. And my great-grandfather took me on a trip to Huron one day, and that was the first time I ever saw hood country.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself, man, like in Vallejo, there was always like these, I guess sort of like gray ponytailed hippies, or like kind of like the older Tower District people. They're always like want a cause,
mm-hmm.
someone to go. And there was a bunch of people that always just wanted to go save the hood, help people in the hood. And I remember thinking on Huron, I was like, man, like who the fuck's gonna help you out here?
Yep.
It's do or die.
Yep.
And I think that just embeds sort of like a grit, like just a get her done.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's me or nothing. And that just this has to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just that builds up in someone over time, and just
it's wild to think about it from like I guess a social perspective, is like even that hood in Kalinga or Huron or wherever is actually a sanctuary from what some of these people are coming from across the border. And it's like, so there's this different, feeling of like, to us, maybe it feels like the hood, but to them, it's like, this is better than where my situation I might've been coming to. And I'm sending money back because people back there need help more than I need help.
For sure. And I mean, I think that they're working even more intense to try to, make that money to send back. Right. And they're like, man, I'm here. I got to make it. And, I mean, I would say probably all walks of life, like not just people that, cross the border, but even ones that the border crossed them in Central California. I mean, I know a lot of toothless white guys in trailer parks in Fresno and different cities. That
probably my uncles.
Have that same grit. You go on the west side and, the Hmong, community that's here, the Armenians. I think we've kind of brought this up when we were doing the rebrand video for the Grizz, where just about everybody here came here with nothing, and everything they have, they literally either built or grew from nothing. Mm-hmm. So when you come from nothing, you have nothing to fear. And that kind of brings I feel like that's where that intensity and that grit comes from.
Yeah, it's something that I really feel like we as Fuego have the opportunity to embody.
Yeah.
Sure. And as we talk about like marketing and identifying with your community and with where you come from, I feel like we've got a really good opportunity to capture that and be Fresno State is great, and it's always going to be like, probably the biggest brand in the Valley, but being able to have something to be proud of if you're from the Central Valley that you feel like kind of represents you, like how the Pittsburgh Steelers feel to people in Pittsburgh. It's like Steel City, we're working, we're grinding, and that's how we're going to be on the field. We're going to hit hard, we're going to play defense.
Yeah.
And I think our team has that kind of that same opportunity to do it.
I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I wore Fresno State stuff to, like sort of show my roots and whatnot. I wore that to kind of express my Fresno pride as a kid. However, I have some friends who are Latino, and it gets a little muddy for them wearing, as much Fresno State stuff as they want. And so that's why, and also I've found, when you go to Visalia or you go to Madera, you go to certain places, they're not as, passionate about the Fresno State brand there. So I love that you guys did Central Valley. Fuego, which is sort of, I've always wanted, obviously I did it with the Grizzlies to kind of make this a valley thing, because, that country hood in Huron is just as, I feel like that's actually what Fresno is a collection of all of those little hoods. Yeah. And Fresno is the nucleus of, this radiating Central California aesthetic.
It is, yeah. And that was something that was super important to us going through the process, is like we'd seen in the past with Fuego or Fresno FC that people are driving in from Reedley and Parlier and Dinuba and Livingston and like all these different places that love the game, and they're looking for an opportunity to like go cheer on something, their kids play soccer, whatever it is. And it's like we really felt like that was one of the most important things for us, is to embed ourselves in those outside communities. And it starts with marketing, and we're working on like, billboards and all that stuff, and even doing small little bulletins out like on Manning. Or way out on 180 or in Kerman or wherever, because we want those places to know like this is your club. You can be proud of this, you're part of this, and we want to do camps and clinics and sign kids from your areas to play for us. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, man. before the Grizzlies, I think the first time I'd always sort of thought that in my head, but I recall, growing up in the Bay Area and hearing Pharoah Monch do this remix for KMEL where he was shouting out on the original song. He was shouting out the boroughs in New York. He was like, Brooklyn, Staten, Queens, Manhattan. And he did a Bay Area version where he was like, hey, yo, Oakland, Vallejo, San Jose, Berkeley, and they really repped these cities like New York reps its boroughs. And I remember thinking, like, why can't we do that with, Dinuba, Hanford, Visalia, Selma,
Right.
And so then the Nickel Nickel 9 anthem 2010 sort of became like, I guess, my first vision for trying to bring that together. And so, the hook was, it was obviously a shameless plug for Nickel Nickel 9 t-shirts.
Yep.
The hook was Central
Right
California, that's where I stay, got my Nickel Nickel 9 tee at FTK.
Right.
And
so wait, you came out with that in what year?
So the first, actually, Diego Red, shouts out to Diego, he's from West Side Fresno. Diego Red said it in the Nickel Nickel 9 anthem 2008.
Okay.
So he said, Central California, that's where I stay, got my Nickel Nickel 9 tee at FTK. And then 2010, we did and that song featured Diego and a good friend of mine out of Visalia went by the rap name Golden Child, and then a young upcoming artist at the time named Feshawn. So there was those three. Then in 2010, we did a version where we got a guy named Relentless from Porterville. We had this guy T. Cali from Tulare. Iceman was representing Selma. Proto was West Fresno, and Halo and Bravo were representing East Fresno. And each one, so in the video, if you watch, it's still on YouTube, we did all of these shots of water towers in Central California, scenery that is very similar to the Fresno Grizzlies rebrand type stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd always wanted people to be able to unapologetically rep their cities in the valley like a New York borough would.
Yeah. Why? That's one thing. Growing up in the time frame in which I grew up, like all the kids around me, I remember, in high school and stuff, and before that, it's like, can't wait to get out of Fresno. Fresno sucks, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And now, as I look back as an older, a little bit older, I'm like, y'all never have been anywhere else to know if Fresno sucks or not. You just like to talk shit. Like, as I go around, this is a great place to live. And, like, I've lived other places. I've lived in the Bay Area. I've lived in L.A. I love it here.
Yeah.
And it's got this different type of, like, we're a village still, in a way. It's our tribe, and I feel like there's a togetherness and there's a community essence of, like, Nathan's talked about it before of, like, we share a lot of food out here. It's like, oh, my mom made pozole today.
Yeah.
Like, we got extra. You want to come over? Like, hey, we made whatever, meatloaf. Like, but we just kind of share food with each other because at times resources are limited. And, like, food is a way to bring people together. And I always felt like in Fresno, people are, like, they're rough and they're rugged and they're gritty, but they're giving too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Everybody's got that Armenian friend whose mom has sent them home with some baklava.
Oh, yeah.
Some bastrama. But also, this is something that I've sort of noticed. It's very different about Fresno is that ag mentality of very competitive. We do share a lot of food, but then you get into that super, I don't want to call it like the crab in the bucket. I don't know if it's that, but it's rooted in that ag mentality where everybody's growing cotton because that's the most profitable product they can use their land for. And then somebody, the first one says, hey, you know what, I see that like these antioxidants are uptrending for pomegranates, and they pull out their cotton and they start planting pomegranates. And then another person is like, oh, he's making all this money off of pomegranates, I gotta start making pomegranates too, or growing pomegranates. And so everybody is sort of like looking at each other to copy and not lose out on anything. And so, but also everyone is very protective of their, their growing tips or,
their recipe.
Like, the recipe, of course. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I guess we're all sharing food, but no one's giving up their mom's freaking pozole recipe. So.
Yeah.
like how you could make this better or whatnot. So.
That's very relevant to now, I feel like. But man, so let's talk a little bit about the nickel nine stuff. I mean, so you guys created that like 10 years ago, and then you flipped it into a shirt, and
so
then
it actually first happened, man. I was going to Fresno State, and this is 1998, and that's when they changed from 209.
I remember.
And I was interning at a screen printing shop back then down in Visalia, and I had there was a MC that was sort of in Eminem's camp back then, Royce the 5'9".
Okay, yeah.
And I remember him saying on a mixtape, he said like nickel 9, and the DJ just scratched it, and he was like nickel 9, and I was like, and so I immediately got on Illustrator and put the 2 nickels and a 9mm, and the day that the area code changed, I had shirts like at Fresno State, and I was like slanging them, like just out of my backpack at Fresno State. So then when we ended up opening up FTK in Visalia, we were selling those shirts there, and it just sort of became like our signature shirt, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where I started seeing, like people with it tatted on their neck, on their arms. I mean, and it sort of became a, like a symbol for the valley. And one thing for me, I was like let it, open source, like let it go. I've seen bootleg nickel 9 tees. One time I did get a little defensive because this person was going to open up a store called nickel 9 Vintage, and I thought that was way too close to what I was doing. So I did a little, I was like, hey, but I didn't stop the person from doing it. I just wanted to make sure that at that point I kind of had to be like, hey, we started this first, but I also didn't want to be like protective of it.
It's so hard because I think we've experienced that recently as well, where it's like you feel like you're building a brand, you feel like you've created an identity, and you've get this, for us it's extending what was here 10, 15, 20 years ago, and kind of reinventing it a bit, but you do get really protective over like your stuff, and
but it wasn't so much protective because I do love seeing other people like run with it and take it. It was just this one particular thing was just a little
too close.
It was just ironic because it was I closed FTK in 2011 because I had this epiphany about going to work for the Grizzlies, using the Grizzlies to sort of help turn downtown Fresno into this metropolitan hub for the Greater Valley, and then I would open a store, in downtown Fresno. And so I feel like I dedicated a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make that happen with everything that we did at the Grizz. And then right whenever I finally was like, okay, this is good. This is kind of going how I opened up my store, and then someone else wants to open a vintage store, basically
with your brand
very confused with the exact same, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the only time, but I wasn't trying to get protective of it as maybe I was, but it was like it would have just been a shame for me to have like sat on all this vintage stuff that I was hoarding for 10 years only to have it.
Yeah. You were being patient and trying to do it the right way and at the right time, and it kind of felt like someone was pulling the rug a little.
Yeah. It's sort of like there's a website, Grailed. I was going to put a Kanye West T-shirt that I had, just had dead stock on Grailed, and they flagged it and they said, "We're sorry, we need to check this for authenticity." And I was like, "Do you want to email it to me?"
Right.
That was sort of the feeling where now it's like, if someone comes in halfway into a NASCAR race, they have no idea who's winning.
Yep.
And people like.
And sometimes it's not those people's fault either. I remember like when we got going, somebody made an Instagram that was like exactly the same as ours. And they were posting things almost as if they were the club. And it was like, we weren't trying to, we want as many people to create accounts and fan accounts and like get the brand out there all over the place. But you also want to make sure that the club or the brand's message is coming through clearly, and it's not confused or misinterpreted by people that may not know.
Yeah.
It's you or not.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes like, I don't like it's that hard line of where you don't want to come off as like being on your own dick too much, and like,
or super corporate.
Yeah, or and talking about like what you've done just so you, but those people do come back in. It's kind of like, to me, what I think of it as is when you're watching an episode of The Sopranos, they have that little montage that kind of shows you what previously happened, so it gets you up to speed. And I try to do that, but oftentimes, unfortunately, it comes off as like me like popping my own collar a little too much.
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, man, like for me at least, like I sometimes have to do that, because you have people that just like literally come in, and I mean, I got accused of being a gentrifier the other day, and I'm like, I've literally probably been like the biggest advocate of anti-gentrification like in downtown Fresno, and I literally have someone that like moved to downtown Fresno 2 years ago, saying that I look like the poster child for gentrification. And
what the hell does that even mean?
I don't know really, but I mean, I'm assuming, looking at it from the outside, right? You don't know me. I mean, I'm a white dude with a ponytail, like fully immersed in this like urban culture.
You're like 10 years away from being that Vallejo guy that you were just talking about earlier with the gray hair and a cause.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so I completely
the perception.
Get it. But like if I didn't know me, I might think the same thing also.
Sure.
So it's just like, it's like just bittersweet irony where you're just like, wow, like, dude,
what's going on with downtown, man? I feel like I don't want to say I haven't given up on it per se, but I'm not seeing it the way that I saw it 5 or 6 years ago. Really, kind of like with an upward trajectory.
So I think the COVID obviously had a big part in it, but there are like, okay, so for me, and I'm not. This is just my personal.
Yeah.
I am on the board for Downtown Fresno partnership or foundation, but this is just my personal feeling, is that the intentions are well, but you have a lot of people that for years have wanted to bring things to downtown Fresno that they think will bring people from North Fresno and Clovis downtown, and some of that has worked. Craft beers and craft cocktails. Now, like charcuterie and whatever the new trend that young hip people from Clovis and North Fresno want, they're trying to bring to downtown to make that be the young hip place. And it might work. I don't know if it will. I feel like that's something that they've been doing for 60 years, and it hasn't. But I tried, for example, like when I did the collab with Tioga, Mike Cruz asked me in 2012 about using the Nickel Nickel 9 name for a beer. And this was whenever 805 was just sort of
on its way up,
blowing up. And he said, hey, I want to do a 559 beer, but 559 is already taken. Would you care if I use Nickel Nickel 9? And I said, no, for sure. And he said, do you need me to pay any royalties or anything? And I was like, no, hell no. And I said, but it has to be a 40 ounce. And he sort of like chuckled, and I was like, no, seriously, like that's some Fresno shit.
Yeah.
Like sipping 40s. And like I wanted it to be something that was authentically downtown Fresno.
Yeah.
And anti-gentrification, like I want, and
it's a throwback.
So I think he thought I was joking. And then years later, I mean, when we did the collab with Tioga, it was 40 ounce. And I had a kid tell me last night, he's a hood kid from Fresno, and he was like, yeah, man, it's like that made me like want to go to Tioga more. So before, like when I would go by Tioga, I thought it was just a bunch of like white dudes with beards and scarves, like watching soccer games, drinking craft beer
from Portland.
Yeah, and then he said, but once you guys did the 40, like I was like, oh, okay, like I felt comfortable, like like I grew up watching my older brothers drink 40s, so they went there, and I pretty much try to do that with any of the downtown businesses that I've collaborated with, like not so much try to bring something new that I saw someplace else or that I think will attract people from different parts of town. I try to look at something that the business is doing really well, and then I water what's growing. So for Cockies, I myself and other people were going there to watch basketball games, and we were drinking Hennessy and eating chicken wings. And then I was like, we should make these Hennessy chicken wings. and then that became the positive energy.
Yeah.
And it was actually like, the whole purpose of that event was to sort of counter gentrification. It was like, let's celebrate what's here. Let's make sure that Cocky's stays here by supporting it and putting organic, authentic events on. And that's worked for me. I just think that it might be we could probably do it at a larger scale. And I'm glad that Downtown Partnership now, and they don't just have the Create Here where they fund a new business that could go into downtown. They have a Stay Here grant also, where if you're creating something to help a business that already exists downtown flourish.
I love it. So is that something similar to like what was that? And it might have been a different program, but like Kiku.
Yes.
Like Kiku Japanese food, like they renovated their inside. And I love that place. I've been going there since I was in high school.
Yeah.
But it's newer now. It looks beautiful. They do an incredible job. Like to me, those things are, when people start going downtown, they're like, oh yeah, I went to Kiku. And it looks cooler inside. And I like that a lot.
And I mean, and I'm not, completely opposed to new businesses going in down there at all. Like one of the recipients of the Start Here grant was Moss Fresno, and they went in. They have a screen printing and embroidery, but what they're really good at is activating that plaza there and the stage, and they tapped into a market that organically grew in downtown, which was like these kids that are like thrifting, the thrifting resellers, and there's just this thrift culture that exists now. Thrift Demon was the first actual storefront that was doing it. Shouts to Shay. He was like someone that I can vouch for as like a real person who's doing this out of a passion, not just to come up. And other guys like Ghostface Thrifter. There's a lot of guys that are really passionate about this thrift culture. And
Moss is that's Anthony.
That's Anthony.
Zuniga?
Yeah, Zuniga.
Zuniga can ball too. I played some basketball against him back in my day.
I've heard.
He's a baller.
Damn. Yeah. And he's a Warriors fan, which is always a plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I love what they're doing, because what they're doing is like it's an event that's growing and it's organic. It wasn't forced. It wasn't something that was like, a square trying to shoved into a circle. It just everything that they do is organic and authentic. Dab tacos. Like
I was glad to see that. They're about to be open. They're opening up soon.
Yeah. I think that's just something that has a real like authentic Fresno feel. For it.
It's in a great location too. I mean, of all the spots on Fulton that I think could come up, that South Stadium area right there where they've got Full Circles in there now, Tioga, Dab, Modernist. I think maybe is that where a dispensary is potentially going?
I think that's
so it's like it'll be a nice corridor connected to the baseball stadium.
Yeah.
That really could kind of thrive. Because to me, it's like I lived downtown for a while, and it was like I had Chicken Shack or Take 3 to go to, but then it was like to get anywhere else, it was like all the way.
Yeah.
It was quite a ways away, and so I felt like if it's really gonna work, they almost have to go like segment at a time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And really dress it up, really make it enjoyable to go to, have it be authentically, Central Valley. And that corridor kind of feels like it's got a diversity of different types of places. Modernist is very different than Full Circle.
Definitely.
And Full Circle, even though it's a brewery, is very different than Tioga.
For sure.
So I think that seems like a spark that could really light it.
Yeah, and hopefully it just shoots all the way down Fulton, which is and I love Chicken Shack. I love what Damon has brought. I think that what Damon brings with Chicken Shack is definitely different than what Cocky's does with their wings.
Yep.
And so I feel like you guys for Fuego FC kind of have the same approach that I've had just with FTK as supporting. I've done events with Take 3. That was something that was authentic within their wheelhouse, but it sort of edified their position. Got the Tupac pop-up, got them a lot of national attention, and then from that they were able to build new customers.
Is that also where you did the steak and eggs breakfast?
That's the biggie. So yeah, the biggie thing was something that I've always done. Like I've always just eaten T-bone steak, cheese, eggs, and Welch's grape on. It's weird. You would think that I would do it on the day that Biggie's birthday, But the day that Biggie died is so synonymous because of the cannabis. Like, the greatest rapper of all time died on March 9th. So for some reason, we celebrate Biggie on the day he died, where everyone else we celebrate on their birthday. But so on March 9th, I would always eat a T-bone steak cheese. And
at like a certain time, right? You guys opened up super early.
So that, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't used to do that. I asked Dez if, shouts out to Dez, Take 3, and then also she has Grumpy Burger Ladies over at Full Circle now. But I asked Dez if we could do this at her place, and she said yes. And then I was just joking, like, hey, we should open up at 546. You know, who the fuck is this? And so we did, and just people just really got into it. It was, I think that people love themes. People really like when you kind of give them parameters. So everyone's so creative now. It's a whole generation of ADD. And so if you really give someone like, hey, we're going to do this art show, but you can only make it about classic pro wrestling, you know, it becomes a little more, you know, honed in. You can only do art pieces about Hennessy. You can only do art pieces about Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, I hate the word curator, but I guess that's kind of what I've been doing is...
right, you create the space for something to then flourish. So, I mean, the question that I have, because I think you've done an incredible job of taking that thematic style and implementing that into, dude, I mean, so many crazy things at the Grizzlies, from Taco Truck Throwdown all the way down to like Princess and Pirates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And hitting every single demographic. Soccer tends to be a little bit more about the game, and people tend to be still kind of purists in a way. But I do think that you see throughout the country, people are having success with thematic things, but not over the top as much with baseball, where they're wearing like a pirate jersey or something like that. But I've always thought about, man, I'd love to have some of those cool thematic type of things embedded into our soccer matches, whether it's like a season-long thing or individual games, because, you know, on your end, as a creative, it's like you can build around a thematic unit like entertainment, food, merchandise, marketing, right? Like all of these different things can kind of tie in to maybe capture a new audience that may not have come to a Fuego game in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I at first, like you, I worried if soccer was just too fast-paced and people were actually just, you know, baseball's so drawn out.
You have time to walk around.
And you need some filler. But like soccer is just so intense, and it's sort of like basketball. But you see in Brooklyn Nets wearing Coogee print, you know, Biggie themed stuff now. So I think it could work in soccer. I don't know though, since, you know, again, I'm sure just like originally baseball, that was when we first started pitching that at the Grizz, I had people saying like, oh, that's so Bush League. That's so, and so I don't know if that's, you know, soccer they'd probably balk at it at first, but
I don't know, maybe, but
I mean,
whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try shit out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it hits.
Yeah. Sometimes it hits. Sometimes like, I recall the bacon versus tofu was like our next, you know, event that we did after Taco Truck Throwdown, and I kind of thought of it as an L because it didn't get the hype of Taco Truck Throwdown. But now looking back, I mean, that probably would take off now.
Right?
You know?
Yeah. No, you're right.
So just sort of that, like, I mean, it might even get too polarized.
Yeah.
Honest,
now, it'd be like, hey, right likes bacon.
Yeah. You know?
But
it would definitely be, you know, woke versus MAGA.
For sure.
So.
Speaking of which, one of my favorite things that you did was the taco trucks on every corner hat.
Oh God, bro, that was so nuts. Like, I was in traffic in between Fairfield and Vallejo, and sitting there, and my phone was like buzzing, like blowing up, and I was like, dude, what? Like, I thought somebody died, bro. I freaking pulled over out of traffic and look at my phone, and like 7 people had sent me like the screenshots of Latinos for Trump supporter claims there will be taco trucks on every corner, and like I was like, I was like, oh my God, like this is
gold.
This is gold. And I hit Andy Inman, Big Andy.
Shout out to Andy.
And I was like, Andy, I'm gonna order these red, the Trump hats.
The Trump hats,
the blank ones. I go, I'm gonna order them right now and get them embroidered. I was like, can you Photoshop, taco trucks on every corner in that Times New Roman Trump font? put it up on FresnoGrizzlies.com, web store, and I don't recall the amount of hats. All I remember was we sold $11,000 worth of those hats before we even had them in stock, like overnight.
It's epic.
Yeah, it was crazy. But just to be able to be like quick on your feet, to be able to like capture that and turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, in this world now, it's like, and that's something we've got to get better at as we grow, is like our social media presence. But you almost need somebody that's just completely focused on pop culture.
Yeah.
That's paying attention to what's happening on Twitter, or what's happening like every day, because there's moments you can capture that could be really beneficial for your club.
Yeah, that's. I mean, now, because me just being an anthro major, like I was obviously like obsessed with culture, and so that being said, I was obsessed with pop culture. But you got to really sort of like digest it. Where is this going to be a fidget spinner? Is this going to be a crate challenge type thing? Where I've seen, people go all in and order we're getting our own custom milk crates.
Yeah, and by the time you get them,
yeah,
nobody gives a shit.
Yep. So sometimes too, there's a lot of, and at least here with Fresno sports, people feeling like everything is a missed opportunity, and sometimes, your time could be better allocated elsewhere. And you just got to kind of, so to your point, you do need someone who is sort of able to digest pop culture and sort of gauge the upshoot of what the time consumed versus the return on investment,
the reward on it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't know, because those taco trucks on every corner could have sold 5 hats.
Yeah.
And then you sell $11,000 worth, like.
But I knew though, I did think that. I remember being
it was perfect.
Yeah, and we had Taco Truck Throwdown coming up right then. So in my head, I thought it could just come and go. But I was like, no, this is like exactly what, because people were like, oh yes, like please, please put taco trucks on every corner.
It was polarizing, because some people loved it and some people hated it, but still people's eyeballs were on it.
Yeah, definitely. That was crazy, because that day, we were in USA Today. Well, I had the Tupac thing was in USA Today in one part, and then that truck was in the thing was in another part of USA Today. So we were going super viral. And I guess you can go super viral, but one thing that was important for me, and I think you understand it too, was when you're in that viral position, you use that uptime to reinforce your base. Mm-hmm. One thing that really disappointed me about the Grizzlies winning our championship in 2015 was, I wanted to make that championship all about the bear flag. I wanted it to be like, we waved our bear flags all the way to the national championship. And then once the national championship sort of dissipated and became last year's news, we still had our 12th man jersey. Like Seattle did that perfectly, right?
They did it well, yeah.
Yeah, Seattle was like, no, the 12th man got us here. Mm-hmm. And the 12th man became a brand of its own. And the Grizz, we got really hung up on the championship itself and branded, the champs are here. And we went that route where we should have just fed that all into the bear flag and the Central Valley, in my opinion. Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, I think we're excited because now we're getting to work with you. So FTK and your company and Fuego are combining forces.
Yeah, man.
Just talk to the people a little bit about that.
So I think that we had talked about, Nathan has a ton of great ideas. I really respect Nathan as a marketer and as a creative. And I think that giving Nathan the free space to do more of his creative strategies and sort of, at least for letting FTK direct merchandise, is going to be insanely beneficial to the club, just in more ways than just putting some cool merch out there.
Yep.
And also, we decided that I think the first piece we were going to drop was this. But
yeah.
We have a lot of other designs in the work. But
see that there?
Fuego Nickel 9 tee. Central California. That's where I stay. Diego Red quote. But I mean, we also have some other collabs that Julio Broti of TZ Radio fame is part of the FTK Construction team. So he's already knocked out some designs, and I think
you gonna talk about the one you're releasing yet, or are you gonna save that for later?
Yeah. So then we have a Star Child Archives tee. So FTK Construction now is the marketing agency that helps with the branding and whatnot. And the store now is called Star Child Archives. I actually gave the store to my girlfriend, and she runs it. She's from Fresno. She respects the brand, so she runs the store. And so the store is now called Star Child Archives, which sort of tie back to the little Star Child FTK logo. So we're going to do a Star Child tee that is a little more aggressive
sure
than this one. This one is I feel like everybody can wear this. It's a nickel 9. It's sort of a symbol for the valley. The other shirt is also a symbol for the valley, but it's you're not gonna be able to wear it to school or to church,
right?
So
well, I'm excited for that, and I think our supporter clubs will be excited for that one as well, because I think it's a little theme towards their brand.
For sure. We'll post this on social later, but we ready to, I've already announced the pop-up on the 17th.
Yeah, this will come out before then, so yeah, we definitely want to talk about that. So yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like.
So at the shop, Star Child Archives, or the store formerly known as FTK, is now a vintage store by appointment only, and I know what you're thinking, like, an appointment only vintage store in downtown Fresno, and this poor community. But honestly, we made it appointment only because if we just leave our doors open, there's no reason to, that we'd just be sitting there. It saves resources having it by appointment only. And we do have a lot of really expensive pieces in there. We have a lot of cheap pieces also, but we do have some $600 vintage Kanye, dead stock vintage Kanye tees. If anyone knows me, I'm the type of person who wants to hold on to those. Or actually, you've seen me burn.
I have seen you burn.
Yeah, burn
the $100 T-shirt.
Yeah. So I'm not the type of person that's trying to exploit the community with a $600 T-shirt. But Brandy and Star Child Archives selling those T-shirts gives us the space next door where we have a gallery space that we use for pop-ups. Dorian from the brand Sincere, who also created the Fresno Tacos logo, he just used it for a pop-up for his brand, which is a Downtown Fresno brand. And we're going to use that space for a Fuego pop-up. So I think we're going to bring in a lot of what we would refer to as your grassroots or your core stuff that's just very logo-driven, and which is super clean, like really cool stuff. We're going to have that stuff in there, so if you are downtown and you want to buy some core Fuego FC merch, that will be there. And then we'll also be releasing this tee. I think I might try to knock out another design, another FTK or Star Child Archives Fuego FC collab design. And then next door we will have the Hooligans tee.
The Hooligans tee.
Yeah.
Excited about that one. I think that one will catch fire.
Yeah, I hope so, man. But
and where's exactly the store?
So it is on Van Ness and Divisadero. So I guess the area I think is downtown, but it is technically in the Cultural Arts District. So anyone familiar with downtown would know where Frosty Queen is.
Frosty Queen.
But the address is 1830 Van Ness, Fresno, California.
Near Rio. Ironbird Lofts are kind of
sort of
around the corner from you
so
guys.
It's right next to Frosty Queen. So it's on Valley Food. So there's Divisadero and Van Ness.
So for anybody who's getting on the freeway coming from downtown, if you're going to the 180 off the Van Ness, you're gonna hit it
right there. Yeah, and it's gonna be open to the public, so it's not an appointment only. FTK, or I'm sorry, Star Child.
And it'll give people an opportunity who may be cautious or like afraid to make an appointment to just go look. They'll get an opportunity to go into your shop and see a bunch of really cool vintage gear that you have and kind of get an idea of what you're doing down there.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a new modern concept that's different, and I think people are kind of looking for things that are different, and this is a cool opportunity for them to see something a little new.
I mean, we literally call it Star Child Archive because a ton of the stuff in there is just like archived pieces. I mean, you can go in there and just look at it sort of like as a museum of
art gallery or something.
Of like culture. I mean, and then like I said, next door will be. We're basically going to turn it into a Fuego pop-up shop.
Store. Yep.
So I think we'll have some food. We'll have some DJs spinning. I mean, it should be an all-around good time, man.
Pop-up bar? Is that still?
We're
working on that.
Actually, yeah. I think that we're getting the permits for that. So
great.
That's in the works. So yeah, there may or may not be some Hennessy there.
Okay, very good.
But if not, Cocky's is a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Definitely.
So, the coldest Hennessy in town.
Yeah, we love it. We love being in downtown Fresno, and man, we're excited about it. We're excited about working with you. We're excited about this pop-up event, and I think there's going to be a whole lot more to come between FTK Construction and Fuego FC. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of projects that we already have mapped out and that came really quick. So then that leads me to believe that there's just going to be so much more potential for really cool collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, one of our major goals with this club is to also create an apparel line, a merchandise line that people can really like take pride that this is a Central Valley based brand. And it's based around your sports team, but it's going to be more than just your typical sportswear of just a logo and what you see in the NFL or NBA or MLB. We want it to be a true multi-faceted clothing line. So I think this is what the beginning of that.
Definitely. I have relationships with brands like Iron Bullies and Root and some of the guys that you previously collaborated with. Yep. So I personally don't want to see that type of to just be like a one-time thing, like a one-off. I think that like that should be like sort of the theme moving forward, is always trying to tie in collaboration with other brands.
Yeah, also. Me too. I mean, I think on the marketing side, it injects you into markets that you may not have worked with in the past, or people that don't really know your brand, or they're maybe not even into soccer, but they might like catch a shirt or a pair of yoga pants or a hat or whatever that they're like, that's dope. And I didn't even know, where do they play? When do they play? Yeah. And then they come to a game and get to experience what it's like to be part of the Fuego Familia. So, yeah, I'm pumped, man. Nice.
Well, I think that's the skinny of it, right? Do you want to? Do we need to end this with like a freaking Hennessy shot or anything? Or
I mean, do you have a Hennessy shot here?
No, I don't.
Well, we'll take one after this then.
All right.
Well, we'll go get it. But thank you for being on.
Thank you guys.
Super stoked about this. I think it's going to be a good time. If you guys have questions, shoot us messages or whatever. If you got ideas for us or whatever, you want to throw your hat in the ring or something. Also, we are in the midst of hiring. We are hiring account executives for our sales team. So we have those posted everywhere. So please, if you're interested in joining the Fuego team and our front office staff, go onto our website, apply. And we want to find the best and brightest talent here in the Valley, on the field and off the field. So I think we added somebody to our team today that we feel like is one of the most talented people around, and we're excited to be working with you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. As FTK Construction grows as a marketing agency and forming these alliances with strategic partners, we too plan to hire more. So. You get the NWO T-shirt when you get inducted into the, when you put on the construction helmet. So yeah, thank you for helping us grow our brand as well.
Did they do this?
Yeah, too sweet. Yeah,
sweet. There we go. All right, see you guys. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.